Hello and welcome to Reinvent and Rise, the show that is for the risers. Who are the risers? Women 45 plus who are determined to do whatever is needed to elevate to the place where they want to be in life, both personally and professionally. We talk finances here, we talk health, we talk lifestyle, we talk career, we talk all of those things, but we do it from a prime perspective for women 45 plus. And today I have with me Monique Cox Waite. And our topic for today is how do you deal with the happiest time of the year when it's really not that happy for you? Many of us are dealing with lots of things around the holidays, and it gets a little it gets a little difficult for many people. Well, Monique is going to share with us what it is that we can do and what it looks like around the holidays and how we can maneuver some of those things.
Mhm.
So Monique has worked as a licensed therapist and life coach for over 20 years. She holds a master's degree in social work from Howard University. She has a heart for helping people reach their full potential and helping them gain the tools needed to be successful in all aspects of their life. She utilizes a holistic approach in therapy that encompasses aligning the mind, body, and soul. Monique is a mother, a wife, and a minister. In her spare time, she enjoys reading and traveling and spending time with family. Please help me welcome Monique's Cox Wait to Reinvent and Rise. Welcome, Monique.
Thank you, Alethea. Thank you. Thank you for having me this afternoon.
Absolutely. I am thrilled that you're here. You
Mhm.
know, we talk often. Monique and I have known each other for a little while, and I know that she has been doing this counseling around the holidays for some time now. And
Mhm.
I know the benefit that it provides. And honestly, it's a little personal for me this year
Mhm.
because I too just recently lost someone around the holidays. And the holidays for me is just kind of a hard time anyway, just because it's the anniversary of a number of people who have left here in
Mhm.
my family and friends. So I know the importance of being able to maneuver and to handle those emotions. And we've invited Monique here who's going to talk to us about that. So, Monique, tell us a little about you. I know I read your bio, but just give us a little about you and some of the work that you do.
Right. So right now, I have my own practice here in Charlotte, North Carolina. I practice out of North Carolina. I'm a licensed clinical social worker and therapist and life coach and minister. And in my work, what I notice around this time of the year, there are a lot of people that are struggling with grief and loss. It's coming back, even if it's been from years ago. It's starting to come back. And so I find in my practice around this time of the year, I start to deal with a lot of grief and loss and how to navigate the holidays and things like that. And so over the years, it has just become more of, I guess, a heart, a passion for me, in working with people that are coming in with grief. And so I started to really kind of explore a little deeper the grief path, the grief journey. And even, for myself, just experiencing some grief and loss and trying to work through it myself. So it's just become one of the things in my practice that I really do, I consider one of my specialties.
Mhm. That's great. And you're right. I mean, it is something that is so needed. We all
Mhm.
deal with something, and it may not be death. It just may be depression. It could be any number of things that
Mhm.
makes the holidays not such a good place emotionally for people.
Mhm.
So what you're offering is something that's much needed, and hopefully you are seeing more and more people take advantage of what it is that you offer. So I know that you've been doing talks and you've been doing various sessions. And today I really just want you to share with us
Mhm.
what you've been sharing with others.
Okay. Yeah. So, as we all know, we're living COVID.
Yes.
We've been living it now for what, 2 years,
Mm-hmm.
since 2020. And so I think with COVID, the grief has become a little bit more complicated, and a lot of people are experiencing grief. I think I read somewhere a couple of months ago that the grief pandemic will actually outlast the COVID pandemic. So long after COVID has, dissipated, people will still be dealing with the grief, the after effects, the aftermath. And what I mean by that is, I mean, you have people who they didn't get to say goodbye to their loved ones. They did not have, the proper, maybe the burial or service that they would have liked to have. So you're dealing with a lot of complex grief, feelings of guilt, like I didn't give my loved one the proper service, or I wasn't there to hold their hand, or I had to watch them take their last breath via FaceTime. So those are a lot of the situations that I've been dealing with and seeing over the past year and a half, going into now, 2 years with COVID. So along with just, people dying every day, and along with just dealing with grief just naturally happen. And now we're dealing with grief as a result of COVID, COVID-19, and what that looks like for a lot of people. So a lot of things that I've been touching on is, well, just going through the grief experience, like what is grief, you know?
Right.
Because a lot of times, especially in this society, we feel like we can't really show emotions beyond the allotted time, which I say is usually that 5 to 7 days. So if I'm crying after 5 to 7 days, something's wrong. But how I explain grief to people is, grief is just the body's way of processing the sadness that you feel for the loss of a loved one. So the tears are normal. The sadness is normal. Not being able to sleep, during that time, and maybe losing your appetite. Those are normal components of grief because the body's trying to process it. And in order to work through that stage and become healed and whole, you have to allow the grief to be processed. First, you have to acknowledge that you're even grieving.
Mm-hmm.
So, I have people who come in and they're like, well, I don't even think I've grieved. And you're probably right. In that, in the initial stage of grief, if you look at, there are 5 stages, and in that initial stage is usually denial. That numbness, the shock when you first hear the news and you're like, oh my God, I don't believe, I just heard that. Or I can't believe they're gone. And that can last anywhere from a few seconds to a couple of months for some people. And I think what happens, it can serve as a protective nature initially, because initially, I think that the shock and denial kind of helps you to move through the process of getting the services together, and calling people, and getting finances together. So it's almost like the brain helps to protect. But then if you stay in it too long, where you just go numb and you try to suppress the tears, you try to suppress the anger, you try to suppress those feelings, and then eventually, feelings that are suppressed, they're going to manifest in some way. Right. So then they start to manifest for a lot of people, either physically, with, having headaches, or migraines, or stomach problems, or even, worse things like, heart attacks, strokes, things like that. But also it can manifest itself in trying to numb the pain with using alcohol or eating, And so when people come in and say, I'm not grieving, but then they start talking about the different things that are happening to them physically or emotionally, a lot of times I say, you are grieving. Right. Your body is trying to process it. It's trying to help you move through. Mm-hmm. So it's really, first of all, understanding that there are stages to grief. The denial. The second stage is usually that whole that the anger. Where the anger comes in.
Mhm.
A lot of times, either you can become angry with God, angry with yourself, angry with COVID, you
Mhm.
know, um, just, a lot of the anger. And anger is good. It's a good emotion. You need to get it out, because if anger is suppressed, then it turns into depression, because with any emotion, if you suppress it, it's going to find a way out, you
Yes.
know. And so usually people go through, the stages of anger, like I said, and sometimes we're not comfortable, especially if we're people of faith. We're
Mhm.
not comfortable in saying that, I'm angry. I don't understand why. Why did God allow this to happen? So sometimes, even in sessions, people are suppressing the anger because they don't feel like I can be angry with
Right.
God,
Right.
right? Or even angry at the person for leaving
Yes.
and feeling like you didn't fight hard enough, or why didn't you get your vaccine, or why. And so even being able to process that anger out of you is important. you know
Yes.
Let me say, as we go through the stages aren't linear, and everybody doesn't go through every stage the same way, but there are different stages, just so that you know. And so the third stage is usually the depression, because what I said is, if you don't release it, especially the anger, suppressed anger becomes depression.
Mm.
And so with the depression, um, in that stage, your body is trying to just process the sadness. You're missing that person. It mimics the grief and the depression. A lot of times people say, well, how do I know that I'm still grieving and I'm not clinically depressed?
Hmm.
So in this stage of depression, it hits you more like a wave. So it comes in waves. So
Mhm.
you could be having a good day and maybe you hear a song, or maybe you have a memory, and it will take you into that sadness where you have the tears. You may, you don't have a appetite. You may not be sleeping too well during this time. So, but
Mhm.
with this stage of depression, this is a good place, I tell people, to, if you don't have a counselor, to seek out some counseling, to help you move through the stage, because there are tasks that can help you move through the stage of depression so that it doesn't become clinical depression, which
Mhm.
clinical depression is more of that pervasive and persistent sadness. So people describe that as, I feel like I'm walking around with a cloud over
Mm.
my head.
Mm.
And
Mhm.
it starts to paralyze you, where you can't function, you can't go to work, you're not taking care of your body. You're getting into that, what I call a deep dark hole.
Right.
And so this is the place, like I said, where you want to reach out, because if you don't, then it can lead to more complicated, or what we call clinical depression,
Mm.
at that point.
Mhm.
But in this stage, in the normal grief cycle, you will come out of it because it's not as pervasive. Like I said, it comes in waves. And as you're moving through the stages, you will feel like, okay, I can go on.
Right.
Today was a good day. I'm having more good days than bad days. Yes, I still cry, but I'm not crying all day,
Mhm. Mhm.
you know?
That's good.
Um, and then you have the stage of the bargaining,
Mm.
right? The bargaining where it's like, well, I wish I could have gone instead of him. Why
Yes.
didn't you take me, instead of her? If this isn't real, like, just, if they could just come back one more day, I'll go to church, or I'll be a good person the rest of my life. And
Mhm.
although logically we know that, those are irrational thoughts, but in that moment, you feel like if I can do anything, if I could snap my finger and just make them come back, I would, right?
Right. Right.
And so that's another stage that sometimes you may find yourself just going through. But again, this is grief, right? It's the way where the body is trying to make sense of all of this pain. And where does, I tell people, I say, it's almost like, where does the love go now?
Right.
Love is looking for a place to go. All the love you have for that person is looking for a place to go.
And they're not there. Mm.
Right. So one of the fifth stages, or the last stage, is acceptance. And with acceptance, you're coming to terms that that person is gone. But with acceptance, I think don't look for it to just come one time and boom. I think even with acceptance, it comes in stages and it comes in waves. Because today I might have accepted, he's gone, she's gone. I need to get on with, try to pull myself together and move forward with life, because you never get over it. You just learn how to move forward with that person not physically being there.
Right.
But then you may have an anniversary or a birthday or the holidays that will kind of feel yourself kind of getting pulled back to, I can't believe they're gone. I
Yeah.
don't want to accept that they're gone.
Yes.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So again, that stage, I often tell people, look for it to come in waves.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
In waves. But in that stage, and I believe there's a sixth stage, but in that stage of acceptance, this is where you begin to sort of reorganize yourself, if you will.
Okay.
And this is where people say, okay, I'm trying to move forward. I'm trying to figure out, how am I going to move forward with this person not being in my life? So if that person, pumped your gas all the time, or they paid all the bills, now you're trying to figure out how to do that for
Mm-hmm.
yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Because understand, in grief, we're not just grieving just the person being gone, but also grieving the things that were attached to that person.
Yes.
So I've heard people say, like, my husband always pumped my gas. Like, I never pumped gas. So I'm missing the fact that now I have to go to the gas station because he's not there to pump my gas anymore.
Yeah.
Or that person paid all the bills. Now I have to learn how to pay the bills, or I have to learn how to cook my own meals, or I always waited for that daily phone call.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
now I'm missing the phone call, or if something funny happened, I could send a quick text. And now I catch myself, I'm not able to send that text, or I'm not able to hear the laughter. So we're also missing those things. And that's what makes grief so, I guess, so heavy, because it's not just about, I'm missing the person. I'm missing all the things that are attached to the person. And that's why the holidays can be so difficult for people, because it's attached to the memories. I'm missing grandma's sweet potato pie.
Yes.
You
Yes.
know, I'm missing going to her house on Thanksgiving. So it's a lot attached to the memories of the holidays. That person, especially if they were a big person, like a big holiday person,
Mm-hmm.
so you find yourself missing that. And,
Yes.
and it's okay to have those moments where you miss that and give yourself permission to miss that. Yeah.
Wow.
So
This.
those are the stages of grief.
Mm-hmm. Wow. And it's I thank you for going through those, because I'm listening to you as you're saying them, and I know me, probably like many other people, we can identify with each stage,
Yeah.
where we've been in it, or currently where we are in it.
Yeah.
So sometimes it helps just to know that the fact that there is not technically a name for it, but
Yeah.
yeah, there's an identification that's put around that stage. It makes you
Yeah.
feel a little better just knowing that, you know, you're not in it alone. Other people have felt
Right.
it too, and it's not something that's, just occurring to you as well. There's
Right.
a name for this. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. So, those are the things that I've talked about. And the other thing that I really stress around this time is, being able to give yourself permission
Mm.
to grieve. Everybody is not happy during this time. For some people, this is not the most wonderful time of the year. Sometimes we dread this time of the year. So it's important to give yourself permission to grieve. And you may say, well, what do you mean by that? Because it feels kind of awkward when everybody else is jingle belling and
Yes.
smiling and toasting, and you're sitting here with tears in your eyes, and a lump in your throat, and you don't want to be the Debbie Downer. So you feel like I got to put on a face and be happy, and when you really want to cry and be sad. So give yourself that time to grieve. Be honest about how you feel. If you don't want to be at that dinner party, it's okay. If you need to go in the room and cry, cry. I tell people, if you got 1,000 tears to cry, cry all 1,000.
Mhm. Mhm.
It's
Mhm.
okay to get that out of you, and then and be intentional about taking that time too,
Yeah.
to grieve.
Yes.
So if you need to take 20 minutes to just feel and reflect, give yourself that time. It's important. You don't have to be the life of the party, like I
Right.
said,
Right.
and, being able to give yourself permission to remember.
Mm.
And what I mean by that is finding a way to honor what was about your loved one, to honor your loved one. Because there was more to them, there was more life to them than the day they died. And sometimes we get focused on just the day that they died,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
we forget how many years of life that they lived.
Mhm.
So give yourself permission to remember. Talk about your loved one. Tell the story about, stories about what you remembered about them and the things you did together. Keep those things alive, because that's the one thing death couldn't take from us. Death
Right.
can't take the memories.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
so as long as you have the memories, they are alive in you. That
Mhm.
person is alive in you. And so give yourself permission to remember. And I know right now for some people that's hard. And they say, well, I can't look at photos, or I can't look at certain objects of, that the loved one may have had. And that's fine. You give yourself that time to kind of process through.
Mhm.
But then when you get to the point where you can look at a picture, or look at maybe a hat, or a blanket, or something that they had, um, it's okay to remember.
Right.
It's
Right.
okay, you know and then the third thing I say is to give yourself permission to be happy,
Yeah.
because sometimes we feel like I can't be happy. And I know there are moments, and I felt them myself, where I felt like I would never smile again. I never smile again when my grandmother died. um, I didn't feel like I could be happy, because I didn't want to feel like I would forget her, or
Right.
that I wasn't remembering her. But
Right.
you give yourself permission to be happy, because you're honoring their life, you're honoring their legacy, you know. And it's not so much, I know people say, well, they wouldn't want you to be sad. No, they wouldn't want you to be sad. But the other thing is, as you move through this process of grief, those same memories that make you sad right now, those same pictures that make you cry, you'll find that those pictures and those memories will actually bring you comfort. And
Mm.
so when you do have those memories, you'll give yourself permission to just laugh,
Yes.
you know? And it's not about forgetting them, because they'll always be with us in our heart. It's about moving on with those
Mhm.
memories that
Mm.
we have. And like I say always, death can't take that away from
Yes.
us.
Yes.
Yeah. Hmm.
I like that.
Yeah.
That's such good advice.
Yeah.
And the big part, the thing that really hit for me is give yourself permission. It's okay. It's okay to grieve,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
and it's okay not to feel guilty and to be happy that you are still here. And
Yeah.
just because that person's gone, that doesn't mean you have to dwell on being unhappy and mourn forever. but you do need to give yourself that time.
That time. And it's important that you give yourself that time. You
Yes.
know? And one other thing, I often remind people of is, you know, focus on the things you get to keep.
I like
A
that.
lot of times we focus on the loss and we forget the things that we get to keep. And what
Yes.
do I mean by that? You get to keep the advice, the words of wisdom. You
Yeah.
get to keep, the jokes that they told. You get to keep the memories from previous holidays. You get to keep that.
Yes.
So even though we physically lost the person physically, I should say, is not with us because we didn't lose them. um, we get to keep those
Yes.
things.
Ah, I really like that.
Yeah.
Keep those memories. Yeah. And just like you said, it's the thought of keeping something
Yeah.
after you've lost something so precious.
Yes.
I like that. I
Yeah.
like that. Boy, this
Mhm.
this has been great. It has been great. It has been wonderful for me. And I know that it will be good for some other people out there who are in a place where, like we said, the holidays just don't look so great right now.
Yeah.
You've given us some really good things that we can do to
Mhm.
make it through, even if we just barely make it through this year, to be able to incorporate some of these steps so that we can do just that, get
Right.
through and
Right.
not get stuck.
Yes.
Not
Yeah.
get stuck. Thank you so, so much. Now tell us, about some of the things that you're doing. I know that you are currently in private practice, correct? And tell us how we can get in touch with you.
Yes. So you can reach me. I'm on Instagram. Sister Mo is my handle on Instagram. You can also find me. My website is Coaching with Sister Mo.
Okay, let's change that.
And I'm also in Psychology Today.
Oh,
So if you look in Psychology Today, you can find me that way as well. And I would be happy to help you start the walk, through this journey, because I believe that it's okay. It's okay to ask for help, you know?
yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I so appreciate. Now, do I have that correct? Coaching with Sister Mo? Uh-oh, I think you may have frozen on us there. I'm not sure. But yeah, I think she has frozen. Well, here she is. She's back.
Okay, I'm back. I was like, what happened? Okay. I'm back.
No problem.
Uh-huh.
I wanted to make sure that I had that correct. Is it coachingwithsistermo.com?
Yes, coachingwithsystemo.com. And then at Sister Mo on Instagram.
Okay,
Yeah.
wonderful. I want to make sure people can reach out to you.
Yes.
Um, I want to congratulate you on, I know this is like your first year doing your own business. It's
Yes.
wonderful. It's inspiring to us 45 plus risers who
Yes.
are making decisions about what they want to do with their
Yes.
life. So I want to
Yes.
congratulate you for making that decision and going for it.
Thank
Okay, you
you.
are an inspiration to my audience, I know, to me definitely, and to my audience for sure.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for being with us. And if my audience, and I encourage you to do so, we're going to talk a little more about this over on my podcast
Mhm.
at Leveling Up with Alethea Tucker. The podcast is either going to come out right after this or right along with it. Either way, we're going to continue the discussion over there because it's an important one. But before we leave, again, thank you, Monique, for being here with us today.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I want to thank my audience for being here. And remember, in all that you do, make sure that you stay true to who you are. Be authentic. Go out and be yourself, knowing that you are enough right where you are. And no matter how old you are and in what you do, you can always rise. All right? You all have a good one.